Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here. Um, I'm an entrepreneurial business leader. Spent over 2 decades in the digital industry across some marquee global technology companies like Google, Savan, LinkedIn. Um, I believe I've always had this unique ability to be able to identify the next digital wave early and then find a way to jump on and ride the wave. And that's kind of what I've done through my career in the last 2 decades. Um, my interests comprise what I call the 3 C's, which is content, commerce, and consumer. And the amalgamation and the intersection of it's a beautiful amalgamation and intersection of all three of them, along with my passion, which is digital marketing. And that's exactly why I'm here at Netcore, because this is a beautiful amalgamation of all of that and operates at the intersection of exactly that space.
Right. While going through your profile, I was surprised at the breadth of companies, the type of companies, right? Most people address it to B2C or B2B. You were at Savan, LinkedIn, suddenly Bureau happened. It's a startup in the B2B space. And then Netcore is core B2B in itself, right? And again, Google Ads or something, probably B2B-ish in some sense, right? Was this whole career track that you have designed for yourself, was it actually by design or just happened as opportunities came your way?
No, fantastic question. I started off way early in the digital space, and that was by default, not by design. Way back in 1999, I was a management trainee at a portal called readup.com, which probably most youngsters today don't even know about. But that kind of put me in the digital trajectory, and then I worked with a company called Bid or Buy, which was acquired by Bazi, which was then acquired by eBay when they entered India. So been in the digital space all my life, never worked in any other company, any other space outside of the digital world. And initially what was by default then turned out to be by design. I was one of the first hires for Google here in India way back in 2005 when they launched their India operations. I had the opportunity to build Savan, the music streaming service, when streaming itself was in its infancy here in India. And I think I continue to focus on that broad spectrum, like I mentioned earlier. You would see most of my journey has been around content, commerce, and consumer, and I kind of mesh and play in that space, and that's continued to be my passion for the longest time. So I've always been a commercial business leader for the longest time, focused on driving growth and scaling the companies. And if you see Netcore today, we're now expanding across the globe. We're already in 20 plus countries and expanding worldwide every day. So I think the opportunity to lead marketing and also drive growth was very exciting from a personal perspective as we continue to expand across the globe. And that's one of the reasons why I'm super excited to be here. It's a beautiful, like I said, it's a beautiful opportunity at this point in time. We are poised well to win.
Right.
And I think as we expand across the globe, the narrative needs to be told in a certain way, and that's what I think I can do really well. I have had the opportunity to be in spaces very early in the day. I was part of the team that was setting up the India operations for Google way back in 2005, and digital marketing itself was so nascent in those days. And my job at that time was to educate the market about the opportunity, about search marketing, about display, about video advertising, about mobile advertising. And it's so nascent that there have been times when marketers would even ask me questions like, "Hey, are people even searching? Are there enough people searching? Are there enough people clicking on ads? Are there enough people watching YouTube?" That's how early in the day it was at that time. And cut to today, we all know how mainstream digital is. And if you look at YouTube as a separate business here in India, it's now a $1 billion business, $1 billion plus business here in India. So that's how large it's become. Each of them are all large businesses on their own, right? So that journey of seeing digital marketing kind of transform over a decade and a half was fascinating. Educating the market, almost creating those stories and narratives in the market about what innovations can be done using digital technology and marketing, I think was fascinating from that. I think that's a fantastic question. The whole marketer landscape has transformed in the last decade, and if you look at it today, AI has been around in marketing for a long time now. The kind of AI that's been there is what we call autopilot AI, which is, we know AI has been helping marketers in certain spaces like content and product recommendations, campaign optimization, etc. But we don't see it. So that's why it's called autopilot marketing, generative AI. Generative AI is now transforming that, and from that perspective, the whole narrative changes. If you look at it, if you look at the internet itself, right, from the beginning, there have been three broad kind of transformative moments. There was the web and servers, then came mobile and cloud computing. Now with generative AI, it's the next moment where the transformative journey is beginning, right? And it's here, it's going to be all pervasive, it's going to be across the board. And to give you a perspective, right, from a marketer's angle, what Netcore is building is what I call a marketer co-pilot. We're helping brands enable marketing activities in two broad areas using generative AI. One is what we call ideation, and the second is what we call acceleration. And let me talk about each of these. Ideation is where the whole world of content creation is already kind of moving to generative AI-based content creation. But what we've built is a combination of generative AI married with our deep customer intelligence layer, which makes it possible to create unique, personalized content and deliver them across various channels, whether it's email, whether it's conversational commerce on WhatsApp, whether it's SMS. And that is very, very powerful, all right? And then the second piece that I spoke about and touched upon briefly is marketer acceleration. Today, marketers can actually use our platform to be able to do activities that they used to do earlier, but much more efficiently and faster. They can, on a query based, on a query, they can actually pull up charts that they want to drop, which earlier they would use queries and they would actually use SQL queries, etc., to be able to pull up those charts. They can actually create predictive segments. The system is actually auto-creating predictive segments for them to be able to target the right customer with the right kind of messaging on the right channel at the right time. And that's very, very powerful. From that perspective, I think what we are building at Netcore as well from a marketer perspective is going to be very, very relevant in the next 3 to 5 years. I think broadly if we were to look at the trends from a global perspective, the three broad trends that I think will make a huge difference in the marketer world. One is customer intelligence powered data and marketing. I think all marketing is going to start getting powered by a deep layer of customer intelligence, and that's going to make a huge difference in the way the creative journey changes. The second piece is what I call hyper personalization. We're all accustomed to already consuming content which is hyper personalized. Your Instagram Reels, your TikTok, your YouTube is different from my YouTube. And that same experience will start getting replicated across every digital experience, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's travel, whether it's every other vertical that you look at. And then the third piece is what I call ephemeral content, which is very close to your hearts probably as well, which is this whole idea of super short content, which may not have a very long shelf life, but there's a burst. And brands have to start harnessing the power of ephemeral content in today's world. And I think what we built as the co-pilot for marketer, the Netcore co-pilot for marketer, plays in all three spaces, which are the future trends in the next 3 years. If you were to think about it, right, the MarTech space itself has evolved in the last decade or so. We've grown from plain Jane automation to deep customer experiences, personalization, and the kind of memorable experiences that we're able to build, right? And the other piece that's also happened in the MarTech space is we've gone from vertical platform partners to full stack offerings, and that's kind of where Netcore plays really well today. Today, what we've got is a full stack customer experience personalization platform that helps brand build memorable, beautiful relationships with their customers and connect with them and build loyalty, and at the end of the day, drive their path to profitability, right? At a meta level, we always believe that Netcore is building the operating system for profitability. And if you think of it like that, from a marketer perspective, we are a must-have because we are a partner that can actually help them in their path to profitability, which is today's narrative, global narrative, right? So from that perspective, we've now become the go-to partners from a MarTech landscape perspective. And a lot of brands want to talk to us about all the new innovation that we're doing at this point in time. No, great question. It's something I think about a lot. I don't think, we've all got it right yet, but one of the biggest things you got to understand and think about is from a consumer's perspective, what's changing. With search, you had multiple answers that would come up, right? With generative AI, there's one specific answer that's being thrown to the consumer. And that changes the paradigm because you got to be building content that's optimized to be able to surface when that specific prompt is put in.
Conclusive in its nature, in some sense.
And that changes the paradigm completely in the way we will have to build content, in the way we will build. I don't even know whether it will be called SEO anymore or it will be called, prompt optimization, or I'm just making this up as I go. But that will be a transformative change there as well.
Right.
Because people will stop searching for content in the way they've done for the last decade or so, or the last 2 decades. There would be a new way in which people discover content and search for content. And I think we need to keep that in mind as we start building content, building relevancy in the content, and then of course building the relevant tags and all the deep tech that needs to be kind of stitched together to be able to surface at that moment. I'll answer that in 2 parts. The first part of your question, I have my own point of view, which is still forming, but think about the customer journey and how it's changing, right? Earlier, if you wanted to start thinking about an attire for a large event that's coming up, you'd probably go search for jackets, you'd probably search for jeans, trousers, whatever, the right shoes to go with it. And so you have multiple searches that you've done for a specific look that you want to plan for an event. Today, I could prompt and get one specific recommendation. Now imagine layering on top commerce on top of that and being able to then drive.
Myntra is trying to do that, I guess.
Right? And globally people are trying to build that, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the same example when it comes to travel as well, right? You want to travel to any location in India or around the world. Earlier you would probably have researched 3 or 4 locations in and around that space, in and around that area, and then you would have figured out travel options, etc. Today with one prompt, you could get a whole plan out. It's beginning, the change is beginning, right? The transformation has started. Now, how do we layer, as a marketer, how do we layer content there to be able to then provide that beautiful experience for the customer where they looked for it, they asked for it, and then they got it at that moment. I think that's that transformative journey that we've all started. And that's the reason why in our world of content as well, we're going to have to think and rethink the way we write stuff as well, or build content as well, right? Will prompt throw up video as well? I mean, we haven't thought about it, right?
Yeah.
But when I ask for that recommendation on the look that I have for that, want to create for that event, or recommendation for that travel trip that I need to do, can I get a video recommendation? So the formats will start transforming as well, which also means we need to create content which actually cater to various kinds of prompts that are coming in. Here's where it becomes interesting for us. We will have, generative AI powered tech to be able to create millions and millions of pieces of micro content. There will be human intelligence layered on top to be able to create the right kind of emotional connect in that content, right? And that is that I always think about the new age of content is going to be artificial intelligence marries human intelligence, and that's how the content world is going to change. And to your specific question about one or a few campaigns that I specifically I'm really fond of. It takes me back to some of those old ads that were very basic, but had a very, very deep connection to customers. And for example, the Nirma ad that's been there for so many years, it sounds very, very, very basic, but it connected at a human level, right? And the little jingle that was built, it just stayed for so many years. If you look at Bajaj and the famous Hamara Bajaj campaign, right? If you think about the articulation there's a human connection. It says Hamara Bajaj. And so that didn't change, and that hasn't changed even today. So if you hark back to what I just said a minute ago, even going forward, artificial intelligence will help us create those. Generative AI powered artificial intelligence will help us create those micro moments or micro content pieces. But there's going to be human intelligence on top to build that emotional connect with the customer. And that's probably going to be the differentiating factor. No, I think of it as, when you look at a Word doc, you get recommendations sometimes. You choose to accept sometimes, you choose to reject sometimes. This is exactly the same way. And you choose to, when you have generative AI powered content being created, there are things that are robotic and mechanical in nature, don't have an emotional connect. And that is where you have to layer on top and build the human layer, the human intelligence layer, and build that emotional content into the emotional piece into the content, right? And so, which is why I strongly believe there is going to be a huge play. The intermeshing of artificial intelligence and human intelligence is going to make a huge difference in the way marketers talk to brands. Well, I think this is my advice to future leaders would be, I have three broad things that I'd probably ask them to focus on. One is be aware of the trends that are happening today globally and try to think about how you're going to use it in your context, right? So observe, try to understand changing consumer behavior, consumer preferences, and then how you're going to mesh that into everything that you do, whether it's marketing, whether it's content creation, whether it's product recommendations. So I think from that perspective, I think observation of global trends and then harnessing that from your own role perspective is going to be very, very important. Two is staying agile. No one predicted the next wave, and saw it. It almost came like a torpedo, right? No one saw it coming.
Right.
But it's here, and it's here to stay. Now, how do you adapt quickly? How do you upskill quickly? And then how do you become and stay relevant in the new normal, which is now generative AI powered world, right? I think that's going to be very, very important. And the third and probably the most important piece from my own perspective, and I would say this to everyone out there, is build human relationships, build deep relationships with people. I like this idea of a think tank or an personal advisory group. People you can go to and bounce an idea, senior people, senior folks who've been there, done that, talk to them, get a point of view, get a worldview of things, and then try and use that in terms of how you can change or transform the way you're doing things today. So I think those are my broad recommendations. Stay aware of the global trends, stay agile, and build deep relationships with human beings around.